Give me a minute and let's talk about why this particular tank being destroyed out on the front lines in the eastern part of Ukraine is important. It's a T-90, which means that it's the latest, supposed to be the latest and greatest variant. I don't count the Armada because they don't exist. You can say all you want about how great the Armada is. It doesn't do any good if it doesn't fucking exist. But the T-90 definitely exists. Here's the thing. As I understand it, this is a T-90S. What's an S? What's the S mean? Well, the S is the export variant. This is a T-90, but it doesn't quite have all the classified components that the Russians are supposedly keeping for themselves. And instead, it's what they sell to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, anybody, India, right? It's an export version. It's not as good as what they keep for themselves, but they're happy to sell it out there on the open market. Well, to India anyway, and others. Why are their guys running around in export versions of the tank? Could it be because as the Institute, this International Institute for Strategic Studies, which is based in London, reported today, or rather confirmed reports today, that Russia has lost 3,000 tanks in Ukraine since the start of the war. That's as many, according to this report, as as Russia had in active service pre-war. So at this point in history, Russia has had destroyed every single working tank that they had before the war started. And they are having to pull out whatever they can from storage. I am sorry to say that the report went on to say that given the stockpiles of tanks that the Russians have, it is possible that the Russians could continue this rate of loss for another 3 years. The fact that we're seeing these export variants, something that should have been sold for $5 million out there on the open market, in use in Ukraine, says that the Russians don't have the tanks. Right now, they're claiming that they're adding 150 new tanks a month. The best data that we have says that they're likely refurbishing about 90 tanks a month, and that those are old tanks, old models, shit that's been in storage for 30, 40 years. It doesn't have the resiliency or the crew survivability that a new tank might have. I was recently educated on this point. The turrets on the T model tanks are not welded. They are cast iron. And because they sit right above the ammunition, or the autoloader rather, when that ammo blows or cooks off, that's why you get a turret toss. And the turret of the tank pops off. It's a bad design, as is the entire so-called Russian culture. So this is good news for Ukraine. Not only are they running out of working tanks, modern tanks, but they can only refurbish them at a limited rate.